guys, welcome to the Q&A from South America. I thought I'd do a little trip wrap up with me and Mark. We spent 2 weeks here in South America in Colombia and Peru. And just, me and him had a lot of questions, a lot of different aspects that I thought were interesting to share with you guys. So I thought I'd get started. The first question is, what are some of the issues that you saw whilst traveling through Colombia and Peru?
I mean, honestly, it's their. A lot of them are issues that are going to be solved with time, like infrastructure and just technology, and how they are, in a lot of ways, 20 to 30 years behind us in some way, in some aspects. And it's something that you can't necessarily do anything about, but it's something that while you're there, you are acutely aware of it. Because you see people living in more or less slums, and that's the biggest thing you notice going there.
What are you thinking so far, Mark?
It's cool. It's definitely put me well out of my comfort zone.
Yeah? The traffic here in Medellin is pretty intense. We already witnessed a car crash within 5 minutes of walking out of our Airbnb.
The transportation is a big issue. In Colombia, they had a really nice infrastructure system, and the subway in particular. They actually used it to an advantage to help bring up Medellin, more or less normalize it after the cartels and the ones managed by Pablo Escobar kind of ravaged it during the 80s and 90s. But one thing that I really noticed is it's the state of the environmental affairs, and that goes the same for both Colombia and Peru. You're walking down the street and you seem to notice how the air is filled with gasoline and diesel smell. And, it's really kind of unpleasant when you walk down and you start to breathe in the fumes. At one point, I swear I got a headache, and I'm just like walking down. I'm like, okay, I smell asphalt, I smell gasoline, I smell diesel, and it's kind of like, it's really unpleasant. And a lot of these countries don't really have the funds necessary to take care of the environment. They're still on the upcoming.
It was a really interesting ride in because we were driving through the desert and what appeared to be a lot of mining operations along the side of the road.
And that's kind of how the United States was back in the 1920s and 30s. There was a lot of major scares in our country alone. You really can't can't help to think, how all this contributes to global warming. All these fumes are going up in the air, and it's really intense when you think about it. Just all of this all around the world is happening every second, every day, and it's kind of puts you into perspective what we need to do as a civilization in order to survive. What was the most different from these two countries from that in which you currently live?
Everything. I mean, Medellin was probably the farthest departure from where we live at, and right outside Chicago, and it's just a whole nother culture out there. They seem to operate on a completely different timeline. Like, I kind of want to compare it to like what you'd get in Hawaii or in Jamaica or in the Caribbean somewhere, like island time. But it's still even different than that. Like, there's just whole kind of laid-back attitude there in Medellin. You don't really see that much in the States. And that was one of the things that kind of captured my heart on this trip. Because even though people have bad lives in some senses there, or maybe not as favorable as we may have in the United States, they still love their lives. And they still appreciated everything that they have, if not more so than us. And that is something to be admired. And then coming to Peru, I mean, going from Medellin to Lima, a lot of it was like going back home to the States, because at least here in Miraflores, where we're staying, it's very, very westernized. A lot of like big chain stores, a lot of shopping. It seems very much similar to what we have back home here.
It definitely feels like I'm in a new country. There's a lot of fancy houses and streets here, very upscale in this district. It's just interesting how much of a contrast that is with Medellin.
But then kind of going off into like Paracas and China and kind of the further outside of the big city areas, like you see more of that natural beauty. I mean, you see, unfortunately, more of the slums that are so associated with South America, but you do get to go out there and you get to disassociate yourself.
A lot of what it is, in my perspective, is also a lot of what Mark said, but in terms of just the state of living and what they're in, we were just walking by certain neighborhoods and they're just people living on the streets. We only see that in the inner cities or in the ghettos, particularly. And if you go to certain areas in the United States, you do see that a lot in other countries. But to us, living as Americans in the suburban world, it's a little bit less common. You know, and you start to really think, you know, each one of these people have their own story, you know, and how they got there. You know, a lot of people have the same basic needs, like Mark keeps stressing, but you know, it's true.
And I mean, one of the yesterday when we went to Huacachina, that was a perfect example because, I mean, we met people from what, Germany,
Australia,
the UK, and all the people, all the locals here. I mean, you just talk to them. That's one of the greatest things about this is you have the opportunity to talk to all these people, and you kind of gain a little bit of insight into what their lives are like.
From an outsider's perspective, what are some of the issues that you saw that these countries still face?
Medellin, it is kind of just living standards of the people that are there. It's, I mean, you're standing inside of this very modern metro station, and then looking towards the train tracks, and you look behind you, and it is slums, and people living in just horrible conditions. In Lima, that has not been an issue. Other parts of Peru, yeah, we saw the same kind of thing. But in Peru, it's honestly been the technology. I mean, they're even compared to Medellin, they don't seem to have the technology. Like, the first thing that I noticed right off the bat in Peru was in the cab that we were taking from the airport to Miraflores, they don't have cab meters. Like, everything's just done like person to person kind of.
At least the cab that we got onto. Maybe other cabs have had it, but you know.
It might be something that's making its way in, but that was the one thing that I noticed. Like,
yeah, we literally had to pay for the cab by paying the guy with gas through our credit card.
Right, so we're in a cab heading into the city. Had some trouble getting the Uber because he only accepted cash. So we ended up paying for our taxi driver's gas. Not a lot of cabs and places have credit card machines. So that was the only way that we could pay for our ride.
Mind you, he did scam us. We paid a little bit more than what we should have. What was your most memorable moment?
you know, honestly, this trip has just been so amazing. It's full of so many memorable moments. But honestly, for me, it was going to Piedra del Peño near Guatapé in Colombia. You climb this rock 200 plus meters up, 650 stairs, 750 stairs, and then you get to look out over the landscape there, and it is so special.
So guys, this is easily one of the best places I've been all year round. Just, this is so amazing. I can't put a word on it. Just looking out at this view over here onto this lake.
You just sit there and you look at just this natural beauty, or mostly natural beauty.
You can't put a price on that.
No, you can't. Like, it'll blow your mind.
Yeah, no amount of drone shots and videos can do it justice. I mean,
no, like it was almost to the point where like I was standing up there and I'm like, I kind of want to cry a little bit right now. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I mean, if that's not it, then definitely the desert.
Yeah, Huacachina.
Yesterday in
I mean,
Huacachina.
There's not many places in the world
where you see a desert oasis.
Yeah, or even that kind of desert that's just so accessible.
Barren, but yet accessible.
Yeah, like you see a ton of people go up there to Huacachina. Like they have daily tours and all that kind of stuff for the last 2 hours of the day.
Yeah, that's where we're going.
still pretty much just untamed desert. You have people that go there, but they do a really good job of preserving it and not being disrespectful towards the environment there.
You actually have to get a specialized license to even drive on the sand there. So that's one of the good parts about it, where they limit the amount of access that can go in. Now, mind you, they do have tours, and we were on one of those dune buggies that had like 10 people on it.
Yeah.
What was the favorite food you tried?
Honestly, like I love the street food in Medellin. Like I am a sucker for greasy fried food. Like those empanadas that we had our last night in Medellin. I could have probably eaten a dozen of those things, and I would have loved it. I would have hated myself the next day, but they were pretty tasty. Just going and trying food that just regular average Joes make, and it's just delicious. You get to eat what the people there eat. And I mean, in Peru we had ceviche. That was my favorite meal here, was ceviche. That was my favorite food, by far.
Muchas gracias.
Okay.
Yeah, we got some fresh ceviche. This is a national dish in Peru. Basically fresh raw fish cured in citrus juices.
And corn. Really, really big corn. Look at the size of those.
What do you think, Mark? It looks good, huh?
Uh-huh. Let's try it.
And in its own right, it is great. But for me, I mean, it had to have been the street food that I had.
Yeah, it was, definitely was. And you hear a lot of things about experimental street food, and even just, you don't really know the conditions in which they prepare the food. And we heard a lot of different things about coming to Colombia, where, you might try the street food and you might get sick. We've heard things about the water, but, where we were in Medellin, it was just, the water was completely fine, the food was fine, we didn't get sick, we didn't die or anything like that,
What was your favorite food?
I definitely enjoyed the ceviche. A couple of days ago, I met some locals, and they took me to some local street market, which me and Mark tried to go, but it was closed at. But the ceviche I tried there was just amazing. It was just full of so many different flavors, and it was all freshly prepared. It was straight from the market, which was like less than 100 feet away.
Like Lima is right on the coast, so I mean, you probably have all the fresh fish coming in.
Well, man, this has been a fun trip. It's definitely an exciting adventure. Hopefully, you guys all enjoyed the. My phone just dropped.
Whatever.
Hopefully, you guys all enjoyed the vlogs from South America, from Colombia, from Peru. I'm gonna end the video right here. If you guys enjoyed it, please, leave me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. Anyways, we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys. See ya.